The Great Hall of the Galactic Assembly Station was the largest structure ever built by intelligent life. It floated in neutral space, far from any star system, a symbol of unity among the 12 elder species who ruled the galaxy. Thousands of delegates filled the curved seats that rose like mountains on all sides. Lights of every color glowed from different sections, each representing a different species with their own traditions and histories. At the center of this massive hall stood 3 humans. They looked very small. Ambassador Park Tae-ho kept his back straight and his face calm. He had spent 20 years in diplomatic service, and he knew how to hide his emotions. But inside, his heart was beating fast. Beside him stood Admiral Kim Yuna, a woman whose silver hair and sharp eyes spoke of decades of military experience. On his other side was Dr. Lee Hyun-woo, his chief advisor, a man who had studied alien cultures his entire life. Above them, on a raised platform that seemed to touch the ceiling, sat the High Council. 12 beings from 12 species, each one ancient and powerful. They had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years before humans even learned to make fire. The High Speaker rose from his seat. He was an Orvani, a creature that stood 4 meters tall with pale blue skin and 4 arms. His species had existed for over 1 million years. To him, humans were like children who had just learned to walk. The council has reviewed the evidence, the High Speaker announced. His voice echoed through the hall, translated instantly into hundreds of languages. The species known as humans have violated sacred law. They have expanded into the Korath Nebula without permission. They have built colonies on worlds they have no right to claim. Tae-ho stepped forward. High Speaker, if I may respond. The Orvani waved one of his 4 hands. You may speak, human. The Korath Nebula was listed as unclaimed territory in every official record, Tae-ho said. His voice was steady and clear. We followed every rule. We filed every document. We did nothing wrong. A sound came from the council seats. It took Tae-ho a moment to realize it was laughter. Different species laughed in different ways, but he recognized the mockery in their voices. Grand Admiral Vorix of the Valori Imperium leaned forward. His species looked somewhat like humans, but with gray skin and black eyes that showed no emotion. It was the Valori who had first made contact with Earth 80 years ago. They had sponsored humanity's entry into the galactic community. The human ambassador speaks of rules, Vorix said, his thin lips curling into a smile. How touching. Perhaps he does not understand that rules are made by those with power. And humans have no power here. More laughter filled the hall. Yuna's hands tightened into fists at her sides, but she said nothing. She was a soldier, and soldiers followed orders. But she was also memorizing every face, every voice, every laugh. The High Speaker raised his hand for silence. The Council has reached its decision. Earth is hereby banished from all galactic affairs. Your colonies in the Korath Nebula will be absorbed by the Council. Your ships beyond the Sol system will be impounded. Humans are forbidden from traveling past their own star system until further notice. Tae-ho felt the words hit him like physical blows. 20 years of work, destroyed in a single moment. 80 years of humanity reaching for the stars, ended with a vote. You cannot do this, he said. We have rights under the Charter. The Charter protects member species, the High Speaker replied. As of this moment, Earth is no longer a member. You have no rights. Hyun-woo grabbed Tae-ho's arm. We need to leave, he whispered. There is nothing more we can do here. But Tae-ho was not finished. He looked up at the Council, at these ancient beings who thought they could decide humanity's fate without consequence. You will regret this decision, he said. His voice was quiet, but somehow it carried through the entire hall. You think we are weak because we are young. You think we will accept this and go quietly back to our little corner of space. But you do not understand humans at all. For a moment, there was silence. Then Vorix laughed again, and others joined him. Threats from a species that cannot even protect its own colonies, Vorix said. How amusing. Guards, remove them. Armed soldiers from 3 different species moved toward the humans. They were massive creatures, each one capable of killing a human with a single blow. As they were escorted out, Yuna leaned close to Taeho. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Remember this moment," she said. "Remember every face. Remember every laugh. Because one day, they will remember too." Taeho nodded slightly. He understood. The doors of the great hall closed behind them with a sound like thunder. Outside, a small transport ship waited to take them back to Earth. The journey would take 3 weeks, and during that time, news of their humiliation would spread across the galaxy. Hyunwoo looked pale and shaken. "What do we do now?" he asked. "Everything we built is gone." Yuna looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, among those billions of lights, was Earth. Their home, the planet that had produced a species stubborn enough to survive ice ages, plagues, and wars. A species that had crawled out of caves and eventually reached the stars. "We go home," Yuna said. "And we get to work." "Work on what?" Hyunwoo asked. Taeho turned away from the window. The shock was fading, replaced by something harder and colder. "Purpose. They think this is the end," he said. "They think we will fade away and be forgotten. But this is not the end. This is the beginning." He thought of Earth, of the 7 billion people waiting to hear what had happened. They would be angry. They would be hurt. But they would not be broken. "We have something the Council does not understand," Taeho continued. "We have time. And we have anger. And we have the will to use both. The galaxy has forgotten what humans can do when we have something to prove." The transport ship's engines hummed to life, carrying them away from the Galactic Assembly Station. Behind them, the elder species returned to their business, already forgetting about the small delegation they had just expelled. It was a mistake they would come to regret. On that day, in that moment of humiliation, something was born. It did not have a name yet. It did not have ships or soldiers or weapons, but it had determination. And in humans, that was the most dangerous thing of all. The journey home was quiet. The 3 humans sat in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. But they were thinking the same thing. One day, they would return. And when they did, the galaxy would learn what humanity was truly capable of. The stars burned cold and bright outside the window as the ship carried them toward Earth. Toward home. Toward the beginning of something new. 10 years passed, and the galaxy forgot about humanity. The elder species continued their ancient games of politics and power. Trade routes expanded. Wars began and ended. New technologies were discovered and shared among the chosen few. And through it all, no one paid attention to the small yellow sun at the edge of the Orion Arm, or the blue planet that circled it. This was exactly what the humans wanted. General Choi Sung-ho stood in the command center buried deep beneath the Martian surface. Above him, 3 kilometers of red rock hid the largest military installation ever built by human hands. Around him, thousands of screens showed activity across the entire Sol system. "Status report," he said. A young officer stepped forward. "Shipyard 7 on Titan has completed another destroyer. That brings our total to 412 combat vessels. The quantum fold drive tests were successful. We achieved faster than light travel at 3 times the speed of any known Council technology." Sung-ho nodded. 3 times faster. That meant they could strike anywhere and be gone before the enemy could respond. That meant they could choose when and where to fight. That meant everything. "And the flagship?" he asked. "The HSS Sovereignty is 80% complete. She will be ready within 6 months." Sung-ho allowed himself a small smile. The Sovereignty was his greatest achievement. A ship so large that it had to be built in pieces across multiple facilities and assembled in the dark space between planets. A ship armed with weapons the Council had never imagined. A ship that would change everything. On Earth, the world had transformed. The old nations still existed, but they had united under a single government. The United Earth Federation controlled all resources, all research, all military forces. Every factory, every laboratory, every school worked toward one goal. Secretary General Park Tae-ho had made this happen. In the days after the banishment, when people were angry and afraid, he had spoken to them. He had told them the truth about what the Council had done. And he had given them a choice. They could accept their fate and live as prisoners in their own star system. Or they could fight back. The people of Earth chose to fight. Director Baek Hae-jin ran the intelligence division from a building that officially did not exist. She was a small woman with a quiet voice, but she controlled the most dangerous network in the galaxy. Her agents were everywhere. Human merchants who traded in alien markets. Human workers who cleaned alien ships. Human refugees who had been stranded when the banishment came. They looked harmless. They were anything but. Every day, information flowed back to Earth. Military positions, technology secrets, political weaknesses. Hae-jin collected it all, organized it all, and used it to plan for the war that everyone knew was coming. "We have new intelligence from the Valori homeworld," one of her agents reported. "Grand Admiral Vorix is pushing for a final solution to the human problem. He wants to send a fleet to destroy our shipyards and force our surrender." Hae-jin studied the report carefully. "When?" "Our source says within 2 years. Maybe less. The council is getting nervous. They expected us to collapse by now. When we did not, they started asking questions." "Let them ask," Hae-jin said. "By the time they find answers, it will be too late." In the research facilities scattered across the moons of Jupiter and Saturn, humanity's greatest minds worked on problems that alien scientists had declared impossible. They succeeded anyway. Dr. Nam Ji-won had spent 30 years studying alien technology before the banishment. Now she led the Advanced Weapons Division. Her team had created something that should not exist. "We call it adaptive armor," she explained to Admiral Kim Yuna during an inspection tour. "The hull material learns from every attack. Hit it with a laser, and it develops resistance to lasers. Hit it with missiles, and it becomes harder. The more you fight it, the stronger it gets." Yuna ran her hand along the smooth surface of the test panel. It felt warm, almost alive. "How long until we can install this on all our ships?" she asked. "Another year for the main fleet. The sovereignty already has it." Yuna thought about what this meant. In battle, their ships would start strong and get stronger. The Council's ships would start strong and get weaker. It was not just an advantage, it was a guarantee of victory. The silent decade was not silent at all. It was filled with the sound of hammers and machines, of engines and computers, of 7 billion people working together toward a single purpose. But from the outside, from the perspective of the galaxy, Earth had simply given up. The Council monitored the Sol system occasionally, using long-range sensors that the humans were not supposed to know about. They saw what the humans wanted them to see. A quiet planet. A beaten species. No threat at all. Taeho addressed the United Earth Assembly in a chamber deep underground. Only the highest officials knew about this place. Only the most trusted people were allowed to attend. 10 years ago, they cast us out like garbage, he said. They laughed at us. They told us we had no rights, no power, no future. They were wrong. The assembly listened in silence. These were the leaders who had sacrificed everything for this moment. Scientists who had abandoned careers. Soldiers who had given up families. Politicians who had risked their lives. In 6 months, the sovereignty will be complete. In 1 year, our fleet will be ready. And when the Council finally comes to finish what they started, they will find something they never expected. He paused, looking at the faces before him. They will find humanity waiting. Admiral Yuna stood at the back of the chamber. She was 60 years old now, her hair completely silver. But her eyes were still sharp. She had spent 10 years preparing for war. Training officers. Planning strategies. Running simulations. In every simulation, humanity won. Not easily. Not without cost. But they won. Because they had something the Council could never understand. They had rage. Cold and patient. They had genius. Focused and relentless. And they had unity. Born from the shared memory of humiliation. After the assembly ended, Taeho found Yuna alone on an observation deck. Through the thick glass, they could see the Martian surface, red and empty under the stars. "Do you think we are ready?" he asked. Yuna considered the question. Ready for what? Ready to fight? Yes. Ready to win? I believe so. Ready for what comes after? She shook her head slowly. No one is ever ready for that. But we will figure it out when the time comes. That is what humans do. Tejo nodded. He remembered standing in the great hall of the Galactic Assembly, feeling small and helpless. He did not feel small anymore. They forgot about us, he said. They assumed we would fade away. That was their greatest mistake. It will also be their last, Yuna replied. Somewhere in the darkness of space, the HSS Sovereignty waited. Unfinished, but already powerful. Already a symbol of everything humanity had endured and everything they had become. The silent decade was almost over, and the galaxy was about to remember why humans should never be underestimated. The Korath Nebula was beautiful in a terrible way. Clouds of purple and gold gas stretched across light years of space, glowing with the light of newborn stars. It looked like something from a dream, but Captain Ode Jung was not looking at the beauty. He was looking at the massive mining station that should not exist. Are you recording this? He asked quietly. Lieutenant Han Soo-jin nodded from her position at the sensor console. Every second. Director Bake is receiving the feed in real time. Their ship, the Whisper, was small and fast and nearly invisible. It had been designed for exactly this kind of mission. For 11 months, they had been traveling through restricted space, avoiding council patrols, following rumors and fragments of intelligence. Now they had found what they were looking for. The mining station was enormous, larger than most cities. Huge mechanical arms reached into the nebula itself, pulling out rocks and gas and something else. Something that glowed with a strange blue light. Those are ether crystals, Dae-jung said. He had seen images in classified files, but never the real thing. The most valuable resource in the galaxy. The council told everyone the deposits were too small to mine. They lied. Soo-jin adjusted the sensors, zooming in on the station. What she saw made her blood run cold. Captain, look at this. The screen showed the workers moving around the station. They were not council species. They were smaller, weaker creatures from the outer rim. Species that had no representation in the galactic government. Species that most council members considered barely more than animals. And they were working in chains. They are slaves, Soo-jin whispered. The council is using slaves to mine the crystals. Dae-jung felt anger rising in his chest, but he pushed it down. There would be time for anger later. Right now, they needed information. Scan everything. I want to know how many workers, how many guards, how many ships. I want to know exactly what the council has built here. For 3 hours, the Whisper drifted silently through the nebula, recording everything. They found more stations, dozens of them, scattered throughout the nebula, each one filled with slaves, each one guarded by council warships. This was why humanity had been banished, not because they broke some rule about expansion, because they had gotten too close to the council's darkest secret. We need to get this information back to Earth, Soo-jin said. If the galaxy sees this, if they understand what the council has done, she did not need to finish the sentence. Dae-jung understood. This was not just evidence of a crime. This was a weapon more powerful than any battleship, but getting home would not be easy. The warning alarm screamed through the ship. Council patrol, Soo-jin reported, her fingers flying across the controls. Valori cruiser, bearing 047. They have detected us. Dae-jung was already moving toward the command chair. All power to engines. Get us out of here. The Whisper was fast, but the Valori cruiser was faster. Within minutes, 2 more ships appeared on sensors, cutting off their escape routes. They are jamming our communications, Soo-jin said. We cannot send the footage. Then we store it and run, Dae-jung replied. Find a hole in their formation. There was no hole. The Valori had done this many times before. They knew how to hunt small ships. They knew how to trap them. A voice crackled over the communication system. Human vessel. This is Grand Admiral Vorix of the Valori Imperium. You are in restricted space. Surrender immediately, or be destroyed. Daejung looked at Sujin. They both knew what surrender meant. Execution, probably. Or worse, interrogation, until they revealed everything about Earth's preparations. Keep trying to break through the jamming, he ordered. Even if we cannot send the whole file, send something. Send anything. Sujin worked frantically as the Valori ships closed in. The jamming was powerful, designed to block all forms of communication. But human engineers had spent 10 years studying Council technology. They had found weaknesses that the Council did not know existed. I have a narrow band, Sujin said. Very weak. I can send maybe 30 seconds of footage. Do it, Daejung commanded. Send the slaves. Send the crystals. Send everything you can. The first laser blast hit their ship, rocking them violently. Shields held, but they would not hold for long. Sujin pressed the transmission button. Sending now. 30 seconds. That was all they could give. 30 seconds of footage showing slaves in chains, ether crystals being stolen, and the Council's great lie exposed. It would have to be enough. Another blast. Stronger this time. The shields flickered and died. Message sent, Sujin reported. Earth will receive it within 6 hours. Daejung nodded. They had succeeded. The mission was complete. Whatever happened now, they had done their job. He opened a channel to the Valori flagship. Grand Admiral Vorix, he said, his voice calm and steady. I am Captain O. Daejung of the United Earth Fleet. We found what you are hiding. And now Earth knows. Your secret is no longer a secret. There was silence on the other end. Then Vorix's voice came through, filled with cold anger. You think this changes anything? You think anyone will believe humans over the Council? Your species is nothing. Your word means nothing. Maybe, Daejung replied. But images do not lie. And I sent a lot of images. The next blast tore through the Whisper's hull. Systems began to fail. Smoke filled the bridge. Sujin looked at her captain. It was an honor, sir. Daejung reached out and took her hand. The honor was mine, Lieutenant. The final blast came, and the Whisper went silent. 6 hours later, on Earth, Director Bakehejin watched the footage in her underground office. 30 seconds of truth that would change everything. She immediately forwarded it to Secretary General Taeho and Admiral Yuna. Within hours, copies were spreading through every underground human network in the galaxy. Merchants showed it to their alien contacts. Workers whispered about it in alien factories. Refugees shared it in crowded camps on distant worlds. For the first time, other species began to question the Council. If they could enslave the weak, what else could they do? If they could lie about the Korath Nebula, what else had they lied about? Admiral Yuna stood on the bridge of the HSS Sovereignty, now complete and ready for war. Around her, the greatest fleet humanity had ever built, waited in the darkness between worlds. They captured Daejung and Sujin, she said to General Sung-ho, who stood beside her. Our agents report they are being held on a prison station near Valori space. We will get them back, Sung-ho replied. Yes, Yuna agreed. We will. But first, we have other business. Sensors detected movement at the edge of the solar system. Council ships, hundreds of them, arriving through faster-than-light travel. The attack that intelligence had predicted was finally happening. They are coming to destroy us, Sung-ho said. Yuna watched the enemy fleet gather on her tactical display. 400 warships from 5 different species. The largest military force the Council had assembled in centuries. They thought it would be enough. They were wrong. Signal all ships, Yuna ordered. The enemy is here. Begin Operation Homecoming. Across the Sol system, human warships powered up their engines and prepared for battle. The moment they had spent 10 years waiting for had finally arrived. The galaxy was about to learn what humanity had become. Grand Admiral Vorix stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Pride of Valori, watching the blue planet grow larger on his view screen. Earth. The home world of the humans, the end of a problem that had annoyed the Council for too long. 400 warships surrounded him. Valori destroyers, Orvani carriers, heavy cruisers from 3 other Council species. It was the most powerful fleet assembled in 500 years. Scan the system, Voryx ordered. Find their ships, find their bases. I want to know exactly what we are destroying. His sensor officer worked for several minutes, then looked up with confusion on his face. Admiral, I am detecting human vessels near Jupiter. Approximately 600 ships. Voryx laughed. Impossible. Check your equipment. The humans cannot have 600 ships. They barely had 50 when we banished them. Sir, I have confirmed the readings 3 times. 612 combat vessels, and, Admiral. The officer's voice trembled. There is something else. Something very large. The view screen shifted to show the space near Jupiter's moons. At first, Voryx saw only the human fleet, arranged in perfect formation. Then the view pulled back, and he saw it. A ship so massive that it made his flagship look like a toy. A ship covered in weapons and armor, glowing with power that his instruments could barely measure. A ship that should not exist. What is that? Voryx whispered. Before anyone could answer, a transmission came through. A human woman appeared on his screen. Her hair was silver, her eyes were cold, and her uniform marked her as an admiral. Grand Admiral Voryx, she said. I am Admiral Kim Yuna of the United Earth Fleet. You entered our space without invitation. I suggest you leave the same way. Voryx recovered quickly from his shock. He was a veteran of 100 battles. He would not be frightened by one big ship and some clever words. Admiral Yuna, he replied. I remember you. You stood beside your ambassador when the council cast you out. You looked so small then. You still look small now. Yuna smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Size is not everything, Admiral. You will learn that soon. The transmission ended. Voryx turned to his fleet commanders, their faces appearing on smaller screens around the bridge. All ships, attack formation. Destroy the human fleet, then proceed to Earth. We end this today. The Council fleet moved forward, weapons charging, shields rising. They had fought many battles against many species. They had never lost. Today would be different. The first human ships engaged using weapons that the Council had never seen. Beams of energy that cut through shields like they were not there. Missiles that changed course mid-flight, tracking their targets with impossible precision. But the real shock came when the human ships started disappearing. Where did they go? Voryx demanded, as a squadron of human destroyers vanished from his sensors. The answer came seconds later when those same destroyers appeared behind his rear formation and opened fire. 3 Council ships exploded before anyone could respond. The humans had developed a new form of faster-than-light travel. Not for crossing star systems, but for crossing battlefields. They could jump in, attack, and jump out before the Council ships could turn around. Impossible, Voryx muttered. This is impossible. Commander Anjihei led the 7th Strike Wing through the chaos of battle. Her squadron was small but deadly, equipped with the newest engines and the most advanced weapons. Target the enemy command ships, she ordered. Cut off their heads, and the body will fall. Her wing dove through enemy fire, their adaptive armor absorbing hits that would have destroyed any Council vessel. Each blast they took made them stronger. Each minute of battle increased their advantage. Jihei spotted the pride of Valori ahead, its massive form surrounded by protective ships. There, she said. That is where Voryx commands his fleet. That is our target. Her squadron attacked as one, their weapons focusing on the flagship's engines and communication systems. They did not need to destroy it. They just needed to cripple it. The pride of Valori shuddered as explosions ripped through its rear sections. Power flickered. Shields failed. And Grand Admiral Voryx, veteran of 100 battles, found himself helpless. On the bridge of the HSS Sovereignty, Admiral Yuna watched the battle unfold. Everything was going according to plan. The Council fleet was in disarray, unable to coordinate, unable to respond to attacks that came from everywhere at once. Enemy losses at 40%, General Sung Ho reported. Our losses at 7%. Their formation is collapsing. Yuna nodded. 7% was still too many. Every ship lost meant human lives lost. But this was war. And war demanded sacrifice. Signal Commander on, she ordered. Tell her to finish the flagship. I want Voryx captured alive. Ji-Hye received the order and smiled grimly. Capturing Voryx would be a message to the entire galaxy. The human they had laughed at, imprisoned, hunted, now had one of the Council's greatest admirals in chains. Her squadron made one final run at the pride of Valori. Precision strikes disabled its weapons. Boarding pods launched from nearby human ships, carrying soldiers trained for exactly this moment. Within minutes, the flagship was taken. Voryx was found on his bridge, surrounded by dead officers, still refusing to surrender. It took 4 human soldiers to restrain him. You cannot do this, he snarled, as they put him in restraints. The Council will destroy you. They will burn your planet to ash. The soldier closest to him, a young woman with fire in her eyes, leaned in close. The Council tried to destroy us once, she said. With their flagship captured and their admiral gone, the Council fleet lost all discipline. Ships began retreating, jumping to faster than light speed without coordination, without orders. Some collided with each other in their panic. Others were picked off by human squadrons that seemed to be everywhere at once. Of the 400 ships that had entered the Sol system, fewer than 100 escaped. Admiral Yuna opened a transmission on all frequencies, knowing that it would be heard across the galaxy. This is Admiral Kim Yuna of the United Earth Fleet. To all species who can hear this message, know what happened here today. The Galactic Council sent 400 ships to destroy humanity. They failed. Grand Admiral Voryx of the Valori, the same admiral who laughed when we were banished, is now our prisoner. She paused, letting the words sink in. We did not start this war. We did not ask for this conflict. But we will finish it. To the Council, I say this. You came to our home with weapons and threats. You came to enslave us as you have enslaved others. You failed. And now, humanity is coming for you. The transmission ended. In hidden places across the galaxy, oppressed species heard the message. The weak, the forgotten, the enslaved, all of them listened to the human admiral's words, and for the first time in centuries, they felt something they had almost forgotten. Hope. On Earth, billions of people celebrated in the streets. They had survived. More than survived. They had won. Against all odds, against an enemy that had ruled the galaxy for millennia, humanity had proven that they could not be conquered. Secretary General Tae-ho watched the celebrations from his office. He felt pride, but also responsibility. The battle was won, but the war was just beginning. Admiral Yuna entered his office, still wearing her combat uniform. We did it, she said. We actually did it. Tae-ho nodded slowly. The first battle, yes, but there will be more. The Council will not accept this defeat. They will send more ships, more weapons, more soldiers. Yuna looked out the window at the celebrating crowds. Let them come, she said. We will be ready. We will always be ready. And somewhere in the darkness of space, the captured Grand Admiral Voryx sat in his cell, finally understanding the mistake the Council had made. They had created an enemy more dangerous than any they had ever faced. They had given humanity a reason to fight. 2 years had passed since the Battle of Soul's Gate, and the galaxy had changed forever. Secretary General Park Tae-ho walked through the corridors of the Galactic Assembly Station. The same corridors where he had once been marched out like a criminal. The same place where he had been humiliated, mocked, and told that humanity had no future among the stars. He was not a prisoner now. Around him walked representatives from 30 different species. Some had once been council members who had abandoned the old order when they saw the truth about the Korath Nebula. Others were from the Outer Rim, freed from slavery by human-led liberation forces. All of them wore the emblem of the new alliance, a golden sun surrounded by stars, the Terran Dominion. Not an empire of conquest, but a partnership of equals. Not a hierarchy of masters and servants, but a community of free species united by shared values. Admiral Kim Yuna walked beside Tae-ho, her uniform covered with new medals that meant nothing to her. What mattered was that they had won. What mattered was that Captain Oh Dae-jung and Lieutenant Han Soo-jin were alive, rescued from council imprisonment 6 months after the battle. What mattered was that the slaves of Korath were free. The great hall of the assembly was different now. The seats that had once been filled with council delegates were mostly empty. Only 3 of the original 12 elder species remained, their representatives looking small and defeated. The High Speaker of the Orvani rose as Tae-ho entered. He was still tall, still ancient, but something had changed in his eyes. The arrogance was gone. Secretary General Park Tae-ho, the High Speaker said. His voice, once commanding, now sounded tired. You have requested this audience. The remaining council members will hear your words. Tae-ho stepped forward to the central platform, the same spot where he had stood 12 years ago, begging for justice that was never given. The same spot where he had been laughed at by those who thought they were his superiors. He looked up at the empty seats, at the fallen symbols of power, at the ruins of an order that had lasted millennia. Then he began to speak. 12 years ago, I stood here as a representative of a small, young species. We had just begun to reach beyond our home world. We had dreams of joining the galactic community, of learning from the elder species, of contributing what we could to the shared future of all intelligent life. His voice echoed through the hall, calm and clear. You rejected those dreams. You banished us. You laughed at us. You planned to destroy us. He paused, letting the silence stretch. That was a mistake. The remaining council members shifted uncomfortably. They knew what had happened. They knew about the battles lost, the species that had defected, the slaves that had been freed. They knew that the power they had held for so long was gone. But I did not come here for revenge, Tae-ho continued. I did not come to humiliate you as you humiliated us. I came to offer something you never offered us. A choice. A choice. He turned to gesture at the representatives behind him. 30 species, large and small, strong and weak, all standing together. The Terran Dominion is not an empire, he said. We do not conquer. We do not enslave. We build. We protect. We unite. Every member species has an equal voice. Every world has the right to determine its own future. This is what humanity has created from the ashes of your rejection. Director Baek Hee-jin watched from the gallery above. Her intelligence network had made this moment possible. Her agents had spread the truth about the Council's crimes. Her information had guided the liberation fleets to their targets. She had never fired a weapon in her life, but she had won more battles than any admiral. Beside her sat General Choi Sung-ho, the man who had built the fleet that changed everything. His job was not finished. There were still Council loyalists scattered across the galaxy. There were still threats to face. But for today, he could rest. Captain Oh Dae-jung stood near the back of the hall with Lieutenant Soo-jin. They both carried scars from their time in Council prisons. They both carried memories that would never fade. But they were alive, and the secret they had uncovered had helped bring down an empire. The Council can choose to join us, Tae-ho said. Not as rulers, but as equals. Not as masters, but as partners. We will not force you. We will not threaten you. But I promise you this. The old ways are over. The galaxy will never again be ruled by those who enslave and deceive. The High Speaker was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, he lowered his head. The Orvani accept your offer, he said. We will join the Terran Dominion as equals. One by one, the remaining Council species followed. They had no choice. Really. Their fleets were gone. Their allies had abandoned them. The truth of their crimes was known across the galaxy. All they could do was accept the new order and hope for mercy. They found something better than mercy. They found fairness. After the ceremony, Yuna found Tae-ho standing alone on an observation deck. Through the window, they could see ships from a dozen species moving peacefully through the space around the station. Human ships flew alongside vessels from the Outer Rim, from former Council worlds, from species that had been enemies just months ago. You could have destroyed them, Yuna said. You could have made them pay for everything they did. Teho shook his head. That would have made us no better than them. We fought so that we could be free. We won so that others could be free. If we use that victory for revenge, we lose everything that made the victory meaningful. Yuna considered this. She was a soldier. She understood victory and defeat, strategy and tactics. But she was also old enough to understand that some battles could not be won with weapons. They laughed at us, she said quietly. I remember every face, every voice. So do I, Teho replied. But look at what we built from their mockery. Look at what we became because they underestimated us. In a way, they gave us the greatest gift any species has ever received. What gift? Teho smiled. A purpose, a reason to be better than we were. A cause that united our entire world and brought out the best in us. He turned to face her. If they had accepted us, welcomed us, treated us as equals, we would never have become this. We would have been just another young species, following the rules of the old order. Instead, they made us into something new. Commander An Ji-hye joined them on the deck, along with Sung Ho and Hee Jin. The architects of humanity's transformation. Standing together at the dawn of a new age. What happens now? Ji-hye asked. Now we build, Teho said. We have 30 species in our alliance, and more asking to join every day. We have resources. We have technology. We have the chance to create something that has never existed before. A galactic community based on justice instead of power. Sung Ho nodded slowly. It will not be easy. There are still threats out there. Species who reject the new order. Powers who see our success as a danger to themselves. Then we will face those threats together. Yuna said. That is the point of alliance. No one stands alone. The group fell silent, watching the stars through the window. Billions of worlds out there, filled with species they had never met, civilizations they had never imagined. The galaxy was vast beyond comprehension, and humanity had just taken its first real steps into it. Behind them, the Great Hall of the Assembly was being prepared for its new purpose. The Terran Dominion Council would meet there now, with representatives from every member species, making decisions through consensus rather than domination. It was not perfect. It would never be perfect. 30 species with different needs, different histories, different dreams. Trying to work together, there would be conflicts. There would be disagreements. There would be moments when the whole system seemed ready to collapse. But that was the nature of any living thing. Growth required struggle. Progress required effort. And humanity had learned, through centuries of their own history, that the struggle was worth it. Teho looked at his companions one last time. Soldiers and spies, scientists and leaders. All of them had sacrificed so much to reach this moment. They told us we were nothing, he said quietly. They said we had no power, no rights, no future. They forgot one thing about humans. What is that? Hee Jin asked. Yuna answered before Teho could. We do not stay down, she said. No matter how many times we fall, we get back up. No matter how badly we are beaten, we find a way forward. That is what makes us human. Outside, the stars burned cold and bright, just as they had for billions of years. But now, among those stars, something new was growing. A dominion not of conquest, but of partnership, not of fear, but of hope. And at its heart, a small blue planet called Earth, home to a species that had refused to accept the limits others had placed on them. The galaxy would never be the same.